Karmelo Anthony had several scholarships available to him. He had a 3.7 GPA, and he was doing very well for himself in his studies and in school. And he had a few different scholarships being offered to him, right? So like this young man's life is ruined forever, right? Whether or not he's found guilty of this or not, right? Say he's found not guilty, right? Well, people will now know him, who know who he is, for the rest of his life, and there will always be the stigma that will follow him. What's up, guys? So diving right in, the Austin Metcalf stuff, and I did a live video on this. This is last week sometime, so I encourage you to check that out. But Austin Metcalf, man, this whole story, this between him and Karmelo Anthony with a K, it's getting out of control on the internet, and I say that because you go on X and you have one side who's claiming that Karmelo was justified in taking the life of Austin. You have the other side claiming that Karmelo was obviously not justified and was wrong, and for what he did. But both sides in their arguments, they're correlating this to a racial conflict, and it's so infuriating to see, because again, like I said in the video that I did on my live video, was the intent. We have to remember, a young man lost his life. It doesn't matter the race of who lost their life. What matters is a young man lost his life, and we have to remember that the family's grieving that they lost their son. The brother lost his twin brother, and his brother died in his arms, and Karmelo is responsible for that. I don't care if I won't say I don't care at the moment. There's a lot of speculation. I think truthfully, there's a lot of people just speculating and assuming and wanting their side to be more right than the other. So there's a lot of speculation, a lot of things going on, a lot of things being said, that Karmelo was justified, and the Metcalf brothers were actually bullying Karmelo, and this was just boiling up, and he was defending himself, and I'll come out and I'll be very clear when I say this. If that young man was being bullied to the extent in which he felt that he needed to bring a weapon to school, I think that there should have been other things. There should have been an adult's intervention a long time ago. Because even Karmelo's dad came out here and mentioned that he was defending himself. I'm all for my kids defending themselves and protecting themselves. But I would never tell my kid, hey, kill somebody when you're protecting yourself at a track meet, right? And it's so crazy to me because, again, you can't bring a weapon on the school premises, or you're not allowed to, at least to bring. I say you can't, but let's just be honest. People are going to do what they're going to do. So you're not supposed to bring weapons on a campus, onto any school campus. And for me and my kids would say, hey man, seek an adult. If someone's like really bothering you to that point where you're like, hey, like you need to stop, and they're not doing that, separate yourself, seek an adult, and go from there, right? Because I don't want you to put yourself in a situation where you can't get out of it, right? Like, let the adults handle it. Let the adults try to let the adults separate y'all and do it and go from there. But that didn't happen. And it baffles me, honestly, that at the end of the day, Karmelo, he acknowledged it, at least according to the police report, or according to what one of the officers, it was reported that when one of the officers finally found Karmelo, he said, it's not alleged, I did it. So with that in mind, right, I'll say this. He was wrong for what he did. And I think accountability is important. And he was wrong for what he did. And again, I don't know. I wasn't there. We weren't there to say what led up to that. But based off the information that we do have, that has been reported, true or whatever the case may be, I don't know, right? I won't say all of it's true, but based off what I'm reading, what's been reported is ultimately, there's an exchange of words, and the response was knife and stab this person. I'm sorry, I don't think that's an appropriate response, guys. I am a person who conceal carries. I, as living in Texas or living in most states, they have this. They have the conceal carry. You have the ability to conceal carry, whatever the case may be. But I'm a big advocate of concealed carry. However, that being said, I don't. I tell my family and I tell anybody who I'm out with, like, if need be, right, depending where we're going. I don't try to put myself in situations where I'm not comfortable going to and whatnot. But I tell people, like, hey, if it gets to this point where I have to draw my firearm, like, we are far behind beyond, like, hey, having to, like, de-escalate, right? So, and what I mean by that is I will always take certain steps, precautions to ensure that I don't ever have to draw my firearm. I don't want to. I don't want to put myself into that. I don't want to put my family through that. I don't want to put someone else's through that, family else through that. So, again, like, I understand protecting yourself, but there's a level of escalation that takes place, and I think a lot of these kids, man, I forgot who was saying it, but it's gosh, what was that guy's name? Oh man, I can't remember his name. He was saying, basically, what he was saying was, you know, these these kids listen to this rap music nowadays, and it's kill this, kill that, kill this, kill that, and like, guys, I don't listen to rap music all too often anymore. I try not to, because I'll be honest with you, it's kill this, kill that, f this, f that. It's derogatory. It's nothing but derogatory things. And Charleston White, that's who it was. Charleston White was saying this, that he was saying that, hey, these kids get on, they listen to music and kill this, kill that, and then as a culture, we are we're not holding ourselves accountable and saying, hey, like, no, like, we shouldn't. This is not a good thing. This is not a good thing. But again, I go on X and you got black people talking about how it was justified, and they should he they're happy this young man's dead. He got what he effed around and found out, right? And again, hearing that just saddens me, right? Because we're not talking about a young man losing his life anymore. We're talking about, hey, I'm happy that this young man lost his life, and he deserved it. We weren't there. You weren't there. You were not there. There was a report that came out that I saw that said they had over 30 witnesses. But one of the things I did want to talk about was how there was this fund for Carmelo, and this fund had already this GoFundMe had raised over $200,000 for his legal defenses, and it was insane to me. I say this is insane because for him, for Austin, I think his GoFundMe is at like 177,000 so far, and then for Carmelo, his is over. I think it's over 200,000 right now, and I'm in shock and disbelief because I'm like, guys, a young man lost his life, and you're turning this into a race. You're turning this into a race war. It feels like we're back in the 90s. Glove don't, OJ. It's OJ all over again. Like, where people had totally forgotten that, someone had lost their life. And it was about, for black people, it was like, yeah, we know OJ did it. But, it was a win for black people. And it was like, we don't need to do this. We don't need to do this. I hate that we do this as a society. I hate that we do this as a culture where everything is turning into a race thing. And that's not what it's about. It's not about race. Many of you know I just had a son. I have two daughters, and this is my first son. And I'm going to tell you guys like this. I was honestly more intimidated having a son than I was for my two daughters. You know, being a man is is rewarding but tiring. And I say it like that because, we as men are expected to do so much, and we cannot take a knee, if you will, because it is perceived as weak. Now, I'm not saying that men shouldn't take knees. I'm not saying that's, but what I am saying is there is this burden, this expectation of men that I do believe is not put on women. Or I will say it's different for women in that regards. I'll say it's different. I won't say there's not burdens put on women, but I say there's different burdens put on women. But ultimately, I do believe it's the man's job to provide and the man's job to lead and to be the leader of their home. Uh, my son, who he's only a week and a half at this point. I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, well, he's going to grow up, and one day he's going to be a man of his own, and he has to go out to the world, and he has to provide. He's going to hopefully get married and have kids of his own, and he has to provide. He has to work, but he's going to be expected to do all the things and experience the things that I had to experience, right? And I think that and honestly, when he was born, I had thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is nerve wracking because I'm preparing a man, I'm helping a man grow, prepare for life. And I've said this before, right? That, with my daughters, I want to preserve their innocence for as long as possible, not making them naive to the world, but I want to preserve their innocence as long as possible. With my son, while I want him to understand innocence and respect innocence, I don't want him to preserve his innocence for too long. Now, I want him to enjoy being a kid. And I think, by the time he's 15 or so, maybe younger than that, between 12 and 15. I think, at that point, hey, you've enjoyed the young years of your life, if you will. But I think ultimately what my goal would be is to start instilling in him what it is to be a man and what it looks like. And because as men, when we lose hard. And what I mean by that is we we it's ingrained in us to not be losers, and it's ingrained in us not to lose. If we lose, that means we suck at being a man, and we're losers. So losing is a form of weakness, and so we try not to lose. And this is what is important for y'all to understand. This that is from the man's perspective, is why winning is such a big deal for us, is because if we lose, it's perceived as weakness, and we don't want to look weak in front of other men. We don't want to look weak in front of women, especially if we're attracted to those women, and we want them to be, our girlfriends, potentially wives one day, or a wife one day, whomever it is. And so we don't want to display weakness. But what ends up happening is when we do lose, we take that loss really hard. And sometimes some men don't have it in them to recover. And it saddens me because those who don't have the ability, the resilience to recover, unfortunately, some of them end up taking their lives. Some of them end up going down a path in which it leads to destruction for themselves and their families, aka alcoholism, drugs, the crime. It leads to a life where they just said F it and damn themselves, and they can't get out of this hole that they put themselves in, by themselves at least. And so I'm not saying that, every man should win it, because we don't want that to happen. What I am saying is I think that we should teach our kids what losing looks like and feels like at an early age. This is why I think sports are so important. And I think this is why, my generation, the millennial generation in particular, got this was, participation trophies. Right. I think those are the stupidest things in the world, because you need to know who was the best. You need to know who the winner was. You need to have a clear delineation of, like, this person won, or this team won, and this team got second place. This team got third place, and first, second, and third get trophies. The rest of them don't get trophies. They might get little plaques, if you will, for just as a memorabilia to say, hey, remember the team. Because I do think that's important, but I wouldn't say, hey, here's a trophy, or here's whatever for your team. I think participation trophies have reached the subconscious mind of people and said, hey, I participated, so I deserve a trophy too. I deserve something too. And it's like, no, 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 no. You participated and on your own accord, at your own risk, understanding that you weren't guaranteed to win, but could win. And if you did win, boom, you got the trophy. But if you didn't win, sorry, friend, come back next time, try again. And that's where I think it's best to start teaching kids what it is to lose, especially young men. I think that's a perfect area for them to understand what losing looks and feels like. Because let's just be honest, whatever sport you get them in, whether it's a soccer, basketball, football, or if it's a combat sport like a boxing or a wrestling or jujitsu, whatever the case might be, right? Or I don't know, an intellectual sport, chess, of some sorts, right? They're not going to walk in there, be able to walk in there and say, I'm the best, boom, I'm the best, and I'm going to win. It's like, no, you're not going to be able to do that. I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to do that. However, I want you to see what the best looks like, and I want you to see what it's required to be the best. That's what I think is important there in that aspect. So my son, I'm super excited for him to have him, but I am nervous, right? Because I want him to be the best man he can be. And I think the foundation, and I've talked about this before, the foundation for him in order to do that is going to be the Lord and how I raise him up. And so, but again, guys, this is not just only applicable to your son. This is applicable to my daughters as well. But I do want to fixate on my son for a second, because I think talking about two boys and what two young men, what happened when at this track meet. So my son is, and for those who don't know, my wife is white, and so my kids are half black and half white, and they're mixed, obviously. And so, you know, there's going to be this realm of this world, or of this, as they're growing up, where, some black people will tell them they're not black enough because their mom was white, or they'll say they're not, they'll say, or the white people will say, oh, you're not white, you're black because your dad's black, and look at you, don't look like me. Right. And it can feel isolating, where you don't fit in with either crowd, even though you're like, hey, like, I can't control who my parents loved each other enough to make me. I can't control that. But again, the focus is race, and the focus isn't who is this person and what the character of this person is. We all sit here and we get super excited about Martin Luther King Day when it comes along. We're like, oh, Martin Luther King, and he did this. And, we listen to his speech. If you're in school, I remember in school, we listened to his speech over and over, right? And we all sit there and we can quote MLK, some of his speech about the contents of the character of the character, not the color of the skin, right? But then after that day is passed, we totally forget that, and it's all about the color of the person's skin and not that person's character. I think it's always boils down to character. It always has to boil down to character. Who is this person? And what I mean by that is, is this person loyal? Is this person kind? Is this person loving? Does this person have show grace, mercy? See, let me matter of fact, let me bring up here for you guys a verse I think is very important. Galatians 5. And I think it's important that why I think Galatians 5 is important is because it talks about the fruit of the Spirit. Now, the fruit of the Spirit, like, here's the crazy part. Everyone will talk about the fruit of the Spirit as us as adults, as believers, right? And my kids, they're going to be believers. But here's why I think it's important, why we apply the fruits of the Spirit when we're talking about this. Let's see. But the fruit of the Spirit, and this is Galatians 5, verse 22, starting at verse 22. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. Those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passion and desires. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking, and envying each other. Now, that was verse 22 to 26. But again, in verse 22 and 23, it talks about what the fruits of the Spirit are: love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. I think these characteristics are important, not just for believers, not just for those who claim to be believers of Christ and have Christ in their heart. But I think it's important that as people, this is how we treat one another, is because, when you have love and you have joy and you have peace in your heart, and you're able to treat others as such and accordingly, they're able to see that. They're able to see your light shine. And me and James talked about this in the fruit of our spirit, the fruit of the Spirit versus the fruit of the flesh, or the flesh of the fruit of the flesh series that we did. You guys can check that out as well. We talked about that. We talked about what these are and what they meant. So I highly encourage you to go look at those. But I just want y'all to understand something. The fruit of the spirit, these things that are listed, I think these are important things that every human being should try to live their life according to. Now, if you're a believer, and I think all of you should, I hope all of you are listening become believers or understand what it means to really believe. But when you're a believer, what you understand and what you figure out is you're not doing this by yourself. You can't do this by yourself. And the Holy Spirit fills you with these characteristics, helping you, allowing you to give these Lord on display in your life. And you are able to put this on the Lord, you're able to put on display that the Lord is in your life through how you live and how you treat people. When we go to Matthew, and it talks about where Jesus is saying, when the Pharisees are asking him about, hey, the commandments, and he says the most important commandment, he says the two most important commandments. He goes, love God, love no other God. Oh, matter of fact, let me pull it up. I don't want to lie to you. Important commandments. I think it was no other God above the true God. Gosh, why can't I remember the exact quote? Hold on, guys. Okay, so love God with all your being and love your neighbor as yourself. Those were the two commandments in which Jesus said are the two most important commandments. And why I say that and why I stress that is because if we love our neighbor like we love ourselves, and a neighbor doesn't mean your physical neighbor, it means the people around you. It means the people you come in contact every single day. It means the people you meet on the street. It means the people that you meet at the store. It means the people that you meet at work. It means everyone else around you. Those are your neighbors. So when the Bible talks about, when Jesus was talking about love your neighbors and you love yourself, he's talking about everyone else. And here's the crazy part, guys. He doesn't say love the believer more than you love the non-believer. No, he says, love your neighbor like you love yourself. And I love that verse. I love when he talks about that, because that to me, what that means to me in my heart, whatever that holds, is I'm to treat everyone that I meet and come in contact with love as much as I love myself. And God helps us to do that. And so I say all of that to say that my son, there's a foundation. There's a very important foundation that I'm wanting to instill with him in my son. And we are to train up our kids in the way, in the right way, as it mentions in Proverbs. And what is it? Proverbs 22 verse 6, which is train up a child. Where to go? Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. And that's the ESV version, the English Standard Version. So we are to train our kids up in the way. I found strong foundation. So when they reach, even when they're old, they will not depart from it. You know what's crazy, and how I know how I know that's true, is because I grew up going to church. And when I became an adult, right, and I was able to leave the home because I got married, and I was on my own. I didn't go to church because I was like, gosh, thank goodness I don't have to go to church. I don't have to do all those things. My parents are not over my shoulder making sure I'm going to church. I didn't have to do it. But I grew up in the church, so I understood the difference between right and wrong and what it meant and why we went to church. I had an idea, or I had a very small idea of why we went to church. Nah, I didn't have an accurate reason of why we went to church. But even then, I still, the practice, if you will, was still ingrained in me to go to church, and knowing that's where a place of worship where I could go find God and have him fill my heart, fill my spirit, and to understand what it is to follow him. Well, I didn't do that because I said, oh, finally I'm on my own. And fast forward to I'm hitting these roadblocks in my life. I'm hitting them. I'm just like, gosh, everything just seems to be failing. One failure after the next, after the next, after the next. And realizing that when I hit the really big one, which was the drug failure in the Army, failing of the UA, and being at this point where I failed my wife. She's 5 months pregnant at this point, and I'm on extra duty. I spent 4 months in deployed, and then I come back to only be entered to it's called Sud C in the Army, and then to go to 45 days of extra duty, and then we're getting ready to PCS. And so then having to get our household goods set up. And then they come a week before she's due, and they take essentially everything in our house. And then she has the baby. And a week later, we're in a car driving where we are now, which is San Antonio. And so understand, guys, like I had let my wife down. I had let her down drastically. And I was at rock bottom. On those 45 days, guys, let me tell you, guys, I was in rock bottom. There was a day that, and this self-inflicted. I didn't have to be at this point, right? But I chose because I wanted to pity myself, if you will. It was pouring raining. I'm talking not like just like drizzle. No, I'm talking pouring raining. And if you ever lived in North Carolina and know what I mean when it says pouring rain, that's what I mean. It was pouring raining. And I have a poncho on and I'm mowing the lawn. I have this dude drive up and he goes, "Dude, what are you doing? Get out of the rain right now." And I was a Roger, that's on right over case. All right. And so I go in and I go to the staff duty and the guy's like, "I thought you left." He goes, "It's pouring raining outside and it's going to be raining for the rest of the day. I can't, there's nothing I can do. I can have you do here." And so I was like, "No." He goes, "Go home. Like, what are you doing?" He sees that I'm soaking wet. He goes, "Were you out there?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "No, why?" And he couldn't believe it. Right. But again, I wanted to pity myself and throw myself a pity party and I feel bad. But while in that moment, guys, I was just asking God, like, where are you? Like, it doesn't feel like you're here. It doesn't feel like, you're here to help me. It doesn't feel like it just feels like I'm alone on this journey. And I realized in that moment, I hadn't been seeking him. I had only been calling on him when I needed something. And so when my life was at it, really at that point for me was rock bottom, I sought him. And man, from that moment, I continued to seek him and my life has been forever changed. Guys, I am going through things in my life currently that I will not talk about right now. In the future, maybe we could talk about it. We can discuss it. But I am going through things right now, but because I have the Lord in my heart, man, and I reflect on his words daily and I have a relationship with him. He gives us peace. And he tells us this, he'll give us peace. And not peace and just like everything's going to be honky dory. Your life's going to be completely great. Yippee, right? No problems, no issues. No, 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 no. It's peace within the storm. That's what it is. In James 1, I always quote this verse and I always bring it up, right? He talks about, taking joy in your trials. He talks about taking joy in the trials that you're going through. He says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts it like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do." Let me tell you all, guys, like I love that James 1, verse 2 through 7 right there, because it talks about, hey, you're going to go through things. You're going to go through things and you're going to, you're going to feel it, right? It even goes down to verse 12. It says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, the person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." Y'all, what we want, what we cherish, what we're hoping for, what this fight is about, it's not about what this life can give us. It's about what the next can give us. It's about when Jesus comes back and all have been judged, and we're whether those who have accepted the Lord into the heart and they have committed to living a life that is Christ-like, as the Bible outlines. You'll and hear the words, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Or for those who haven't, "Depart from me, you workers of iniquity, I never knew you." Or, "Depart from me, I never knew you, you workers of iniquity." Right? And if you hear those words, I pray that you hear the message and understand, like, you don't want to hear those words. But unfortunately, the Bible talks about that there will be people who will hear those words, because even after the seven bowls the seven bowls are poured out against the earth, against humanity, there are people who will still not believe and still will not seek Jesus and seek the Lord. But that being said, uh, the our the riches and the treasures of this life it's not about this, not about experiencing it in this life. It's just about experiencing it in the next life with Jesus. That's what it's about. That's where you want to get your life. So for me, I understand and having that understanding, when I raise my kids, when I raise my son up, I want him to understand that he may go through things in this life. He may lose. He's not guaranteed to win every single time. He may lose. However, like Rocky said, because I like this quote when he was talking to his son. It's not about how hard you can get hit. It's about how hard you can get hit, get knocked down, and get back up. That's what it's about. And so I want to be able to teach my son that, hey, he can get hit so many times and he can still be standing. Great. But he can get, when he gets hit and he gets knocked down, can he get back up? Yes, he can if he has the Lord in his heart, because anything is possible without God. The word impossible is a man-made word. We as human beings made that word because we understood there are limitations on us, no limitations on God. So when I tell y'all, 100%, when I raising my son, and one of the most, in all my kids, but truthfully, in particular, my son in this moment, he has to have a good foundation. He has to have a good foundation. He has to have a good down foundation. When you raise your kids, give them the foundation of the Lord. Understand, y'all, you have to give them that solid foundation, because when they reach, even if they decide later on in life, like I did, like, I don't want to worship this God. I don't even know who this God person is. Blase, blase. They didn't want to get a relationship serious. And they, in the end, when they hit rock bottom, or if whatever it is that brings them back to the point, they'll reach a point in life where they say, I need God in my life. When I was truly good and happy, and my life was great when I had God in my life. And they will come back because God will seep into their heart and they'll come back. Listen, y'all, here's what I'll surmise with the Austin Metcalf and the Karmelo Anthony case. And I said this before. I think Karmelo was wrong. He, again, it's reported that he told the officer that he did it. It wasn't alleged he did it, right? So he told the officer that's what he did it. So I'm going to go based off of what was reported, assuming that it was that they weren't lying in their report, and that he acknowledged that. And I'm going to tell you, if that is the case and that's truth, that there's truth there. That young man deserves jail time. He deserves jail time, and I think he deserves a decent amount of jail time, because he not only brought in a weapon to school, but he used that weapon and took a person's life. And then on top of that, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police officer, so don't say I'm the one who put this out there. But I think some of the things in which that will end up coming is fleeing from the scene, and have the police having to go find him. Right? I think that I think, guys, like we need to teach these young men. We need to teach these young men how to be well-mannered and well-tempered. And it's not to say every young man is going to follow that, but here's the thing, man. Wisdom is an amazing thing, and wisdom comes from those who have been in situations like that, where they're like, hey, I regret doing that thing. If only I could have just kept my cool. We can't allow our emotions to dictate our actions. Listen, y'all, I'm not saying don't be an emotional person. I think, being able to recognize if you're feeling sad or angry or grieved or depressed or anxious or whatever the case, whatever emotion you're feeling, feel that emotion, but do not allow it to control what you do next. Do not allow it to dictate what you do next, right? I think this was a matter of anger, and that's what happened. And unfortunately, Austin Metcalf lost his life. That being said, it's not a race thing, guys. Austin's dad even said, he goes, hey, both two families are changed forever. This is not a race thing. 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 Please stop making it about race. Black people, stop making it about race. White people, stop making it about race. I see the comments on X when I'm going through. Black people saying some vicious things. White people saying some vicious things. Hispanics, insert right here, saying some vicious things back and forth. This and this and this and that. This just evil, vicious things. Guys, do not forget, a young man lost his life. That is what is important here. Another young man's life is going to be changed forever. We don't want this to happen again, right? If that's the goal, if that's what you believe, which I believe, I don't want something like this to happen again. In order for that to not happen again, we need to figure out what is it that these young people need in order to understand, hey, there are other means in which if you get angry, whatever the case may be, it doesn't need to result in you taking someone's life or pulling a weapon out. No. What are the other outlets and other ways that we can help these young people to say, hey, so they don't ruin their lives? from my understanding, Karmelo Anthony had several scholarships available to him. He had a 3.7 GPA, and he was doing very well for himself in his studies and at school. And he had a few different scholarships being offered to him. Right. So like this young man's life is ruined forever. Right. Whether or not he's found guilty of this or not. Right. Say he's found not guilty. Right. Well, people will now know him who know who he is for the rest of his life, and there will always be the stigma that will follow him, no matter what. Schools are not going to want to put that brand or associate with that young man. They're not going to want to do that. At least I believe they're not. Right? I could be wrong in that regards. And Austin's brother, I can't remember if it's his brother's name, uh, who held his brother in his arms and he died in his arms. That young man's life has changed forever, guys. I need you to understand that young man's life has changed forever. They were twin brothers. I'm an identical twin brother. I cannot imagine holding my brother in my arms and him breathing his last breath in my arms. That would ruin me. That would ruin me. Ruin me. I can only imagine what his brother is going through right now. So for a second, take a step back, guys. Stop making it about race. Stop worrying about what society is, what these news media outlets are reporting. It's not about that. It's about changing. It's about impacting young people's lives and changing them and figuring out how can we prevent something like this from happening. When a school shooting happens, and we all in the news comes out, and all these young people say, "Oh, we all knew he or she gave school shooter vibes off. They gave off the school shooter vibes, right? Blase, blase." So these young people knew, and they didn't do a single thing, right? Adults maybe even knew and didn't intervene in a single way to figure out how can we help this young man to make sure something like this happened. What could we have done different? I hate that we are so reactionary in this culture where we always get to the point is what could we have done different? What could have happened? Let's not get to that point. Let's learn from the past. Let's learn from what has happened and say, let's prevent these things from happening. Let's minimize them from at least. I don't imagine they'll completely go away, but let's minimize them from happening. Let's find ways for them not to happen, for these things not to happen again. Listen, y'all, that's all I got. I'm Queon. I go by Q, hosting Mediocre Dads. Guys, being mediocre is a choice. You have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. I'll catch y'all next time. Okay, keep being on the lookout for our videos. Again, subscribe to the channel. It's a freaking amazing. Channel's growing. I really appreciate you guys' support. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on X, follow us on Facebook, and hit the notification bell because YouTube's algorithm, how this all works. Hit the notification bell, okay? Hit it, please. I need you guys to do that. I'm trying to get this channel, trying to get it to grow. And if you want to support the channel, go to our website, mediocredads.net, purchase our merchandise, ODA, Obedience Demands Action. It means a lot. It helps the channel grow, and as we're able to put the funds towards growing the channel in a better production area. In my room right now, because my office is being utilized by my mother-in-law, but even then my parents are coming in a few days, and so like I won't have access to my studio, my real actual studio, for a little bit. But that being said, I want to create something better and permanent where I don't have to continue to move my stuff. So, and that only can come through the help of y'all. So support the channel. Look at some of the links down below. Support the channel. Buy me a coffee is an real easy way to support the channel. Give $5 and it helps support the channel, grow the channel. But hey, that's all I got, guys. Like I said, being mediocre is a choice, and you have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. That's all I got. Mediocre Dads out.